So I want to welcome everybody to the February 21st, 2024 meeting of the Town of Concord Historic Districts Commission. The commission will review 2 continuances and 1 new application this evening. We also conduct some additional business at the end of the meeting and maybe a date at the beginning of the meeting. We are conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand in the participant function of the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may raise your hand by dialing 9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking, and in order to preserve bandwidth, and may need to turn off video, with the exception of the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. The chair will call on each commissioner for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to continue to approve with conditions, or to reject a second and conduct a roll call vote. Once the commission has acted on an application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. So before we begin that, I have one piece of business. First of all, I should say that I'm very embarrassed that at our last meeting, I did not lead 3 cheers for Luis and all the work he's done on behalf of the commission. He served for 10 years, and he was chair for 2, and did a lot of good things for this commission in changing how it operates and cleaning up some things that it should have been dealt with ages ago. So we owe him a debt of gratitude. Now he couldn't make it tonight, so I'll do this again next meeting if he can make it, and make sure that we thank him for everything that he's done for us. Now he's not getting away, because we're short 3 members. We're working on this, but right now we're short 3. So tonight, the quorum of 5 is what we have, because if 2 people can't make it, we wouldn't have a meeting. So I've asked Luis to remain on the commission as an associate member until his replacement is found. I believe I have the ability to do this. But thanks to Anne, we have drafted up an amendment, and I think you saw it. I think it was posted to all of you, or was it on the agenda? I think it may have been. Anyway, what I'm proposing is, here it is. What I'm proposing is an amendment to the HCC guidelines to address temporary appointments. It's something I think we're going to need. So this is the amendment that I want us to think about, and I will hold a vote on this. Regarding temporary appointments, the Act states, in the case of a vacancy on said commission, the chairman may designate an associate member to serve as a member of the commission until said vacancy is filled. Every member and associate member shall continue in office after the expiration of his term until a successor is duly appointed and qualified. For those continuing in office after the expiration of their term, the nominating bodies are irrelevant. The appointing body is a select board. The chair may designate them to serve as associate members or full members according to the circumstances. And Luis would be an associate member. Am I correct in all this, Anne?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do is call for a vote on this amendment to add to our guidelines. Do I have a motion?
Where is this coming from?
We mean, what do you mean?
As in, you say for this amendment, what is its current status? This is not part of.
It's not currently a part of our. I believe that I have the ability to make this.
No, but this is what's in front of us is new prose that is proposed.
Exactly, this is new prose that we want to add.
We're getting a jump on adopting this part of it as an amendment early on.
Right.
Okay.
So that we clarify the chair's ability to keep people on.
Sure. Rather than endorsing the entire document, we're taking this specific
right, exactly.
for a need at the moment. Okay. Very good. I would
So
just,
Melinda,
say we do have one his that should be changed to a there in this though.
okay. We
Where's
will
that?
do that. We'll do that before we
Yeah.
officially.
Every member and associate member shall continue in office after the expiration of their term until their successor. That follows the language and the rest of it.
Great. Thank you for that. That's one of my downfalls. My sentences never match. Anyway, Melinda, you've moved.
Yeah, well, I move that we adopt 2.3. Is that what is the entire two paragraphs there?
No, it's what I just read.
The second half of two.
Right.
The second
Right,
half.
yes,
of
yes, the
paragraph-
second half. Excuse me, yeah, second half.
okay, of 2.3.
Right.
And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Thank you, Walter. Should I, do I do all in favor or do I go around?
Probably go around.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Melinda first.
Aye.
Okay, Tim?
Am I too late for a question?
No, you can ask a question. Sure, go ahead.
It says, if somebody's term, I don't have it in front of me anymore, but if somebody's term expires, they shall continue until a replacement comes in, correct?
Correct.
Um,
Let me.
which could be a long time. I mean, there's no limit to that staying on after your 5 years or 10 years.
Not until someone new is appointed. To give
Okay.
us the ability, tonight we're very thin. We only have 5
Yeah,
members.
no, I understand. I understand. Okay. Thank you.
So,
Actually, sorry,
Tim, you vote?
Dennis,
Yes?
sorry, just looking at that sentence. This is really splitting hairs, but should it be may continue as opposed to shall continue?
It should be. Technically, yes.
May is fine, sure.
Yeah, could I
Shall
just-
means, almost like they have to. Whereas may is toss up.
Could I just chime in for a second?
Sure.
Sure.
This is based on the act. So the two sentences in quotes is from the Historic Districts Act. So that is a part of, is adopted through state legislature. So in order to change that wording, you actually need to go to the select board and then to the state. But the other text that is not in quotes,
Okay.
you have the ability to change tonight.
All right, well, I guess I
We-
won't start a campaign.
So we don't really want to go to the legislature on this, but
No, may. Okay.
even though it may be correct.
Uh-huh.
Okay, any other questions before I continue on voting?
Yeah, well, is there a need for a vote if that's in the act? That expels it out pretty straight, doesn't it?
Well, the new piece clarifies it. My feeling is it needed clarification.
Mhm.
There's
Can you
no
put that
problem
back up,
with it.
Ann? Please.
And do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so
Um,
the clarification is, so the act gives the chairman, the ability to, turn an associate member into a full member, but it doesn't actually state that he also has the ability to make a full member an associate member. So in the case of Luis, where he is going to be staying on, we already have, 5 full members. And he is continuing as a former full member, but we'd like to turn him into an associate member to allow for
Right.
more space for new members, at the full member level.
Right.
So that's the first part. And then the other issue is, let's see, I think he was a select board appointment, but all of the nominating entities have shifted too. So that was the other point of clarification, is that the nominating body is really irrelevant, and it's the appointing body that is most relevant, and that is the select board. And in Lexington, their list of all the members and all of the associate members just says appointing body select board. It doesn't go into the whole nominating entity piece. So that seems appropriate too.
So Dennis, what is the clarification that you're looking for in here? Just that you would have the ability to designate either as associate or full
Puppy.
member?
Yes,
So that's up until that point in this is, the nominating body is irrelevant. That the rest of this prose in some ways is really irrelevant to what you're trying to accomplish here directly, right? Regarding temporary appointments, as stated in the enabling act, the chair may designate continuing members to serve as associate members or full members according to the circumstances.
correct.
That that gets around. I mean, I'm sorry to be rewriting everything here in real time, but that gets around all the rest of this, which we don't have to worry about whether it's in the act or not because it's in the act. Yeah, I'm fine however it falls. I understand the need for it, but there probably is a slightly cleaner way to do it, but it may not be necessary.
Right. I'd like to move ahead on this front.
Sure.
I get your point.
Well understood.
So
So we're in the middle of a vote.
Any other questions before we continue to vote? Okay, Walter,
Aye.
Melinda, you,
I said aye already.
yeah, already, and Kate,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Good, thank you very much.
Dennis, I think I should probably vote too.
Oh, I thought you did. We got off in the discussion. Thank you, Tim.
Maybe I did.
Vote,
I'm
of
an
course.
aye. I'm an aye.
Great. So Luis is now going to be an associate member until we fill that slot, which both we and he hopes will be fairly soon. So let's move to see, we're taking up the new public hearings first. And the new public hearing is Adam and Ashley Mickelson, 462 Lexington Road, the American Mile Historic District, to install stone walls, granite pillars, gates, fencing and walkway, and to expand and modify the driveway, introduce new curb cuts, and install cobblestone driveway edging and aprons. And you may remember that I think it was Mr. Mickelson that came to us already to get our opinion on his pending application before he put it in. So so we've had somewhat of a preview, but I will let him carry on now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fiore. I really appreciate it. And first of all, I just wanted to say thank you all for all the input we got last time. We did really try to modify and change some of the things based on the comments that we got from you all. We enjoyed our interaction when we first built the garage many years ago now. As you guys all know, Concord is our forever home. And what some of you may not know is we talked about our twins that were about to be born, and they have in fact joined us. So we're now a family of 5, or 5 children and family of 7. And just kind of looking for ways to try to further improve our home and property and make it as safe as humanly possible, given the speed of which people do drive up and down Lexington Road. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to Kate and team, who I do think have some more substantive things we can kind of discuss along the way as needed. Kate, are you there?
Is Kate not? Oh,
we're
she's
here.
muted.
Someone
Yeah,
may need.
sorry, I thought we had to be unmuted, not that we could do it ourselves.
Last time we couldn't, I don't know why, but this time looks like we are free to unmute as needed.
It looks like I'm not able to start the video though. Oh, there, yes?
There we go.
Is that happening? Okay, there we are. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us back again. When we met in December, we presented a copy of the plan just for an informal review, and the feedback, as Adam said, we got that evening was really helpful. Some of the changes we made responded directly to that feedback. we had been talking about the character of the walls that we were proposing, and we've changed that to a much more sort of rough hewn, loose stone wall that is much more characteristic of what you see on the American Mile and throughout the town of Concord. It was suggested that maybe making the granite strips, which were cobblestone strips at the time at the driveway, thinner might be appropriate. We have narrowed those down to 1 foot. We were asked to check and make sure that the wall setback was appropriate to the neighborhood, and I went out and measured the setbacks of walls off Lexington Street in quite a few places, and we are appropriate to what's going on in the neighborhood. It was also suggested that we might want to connect the gates to the wall, which we've done. And after we filed, Adam had a chance to have a discussion with Professor Barabatia, and we have made a few edits since then, which are not in the files that were submitted to you. So we have both sets of drawings. I can show and talk about just the files that have been submitted, or if you'd like, I can show those plus the minor tweaks we've made after Adam had that conversation with the professor, whichever the board members would prefer. So if you'd like, I can start with there. Can you all see the drawing on my screen?
Yes.
So this, just to remind everyone, is the existing condition at the house. There's a couple of sort of little random, not even really stone walls, just stone sort of enclosing random garden areas near the front of the property. There's a bluestone walkway across the front of the house, and again, a stone wall here that's in fairly bad repair, along with another stone wall over here and a set of stairs that are in kind of questionable shape. The front steps for the house are literally falling apart and are completely unsafe. The front door is not used for that reason. The driveway is narrow enough that you really have to back out of it onto Lexington Street. And as we've discussed, that's a street with a lot of fast moving cars, and it's a
Lexington Road, Kate, Lexington Road.
Lexington Road, I'm sorry. It's pretty dangerous to have to back out into that road. So those are the things we're trying to address in the plan. I have a set of 4 diagrams that show the elements of the proposed plan, which are the walls, the fencing, paving materials, and then sort of driveway layout. The walls, this was the drawings that were filed in January with the commission, to have stone walls at the front of the property of this sort of style that you see at 181, 201 Lexington Road, throughout the town. Over at the gun house, the sort of looser, more natural stone walls with granite pillars at the end of them. We're proposing rebuilding the walls in the front of the house and then the walls along the driveway as well. After we had the discussion with Professor Barabatia, we realized that it was a better idea to connect the ends of the walls with the gates, offering much more security for the children if they're in front of the house. And the bluestone walkway in front of the house was installed, we're assuming, when it became an inn, so that there was a paved walkway all the way around the house. It's in really bad condition, and the stairs off the side of the house here are also in really poor condition. So Professor Barabatia thought maybe just simplifying the whole landscape in front of the house made sense. So we're proposing to remove that stone walkway entirely, remove the set of stairs over here, and really simplify the walls in front and just make it a much more simple entry to the front of the house. Removing that walkway also enables us to create more space around this tree here, which is a really large mature maple that the Mickelsons have made a lot of effort to really try and save this tree. This will give it much more room around the root zone than it currently has, which we think will be really helpful to extend the life of that tree. And then the walls along the driveway, we're proposing to remove the ramp in front on the driveway side of the house and just basically rebuild those walls to be of better quality.
Now, I think as you all know, like when we moved, my wife is a daughter of Concord and we have a great love for this town. I think what we're trying to do with these efforts are to take an incredibly beautiful historic home. We've tried to take all the input from everyone here. And I can assure you, our goal is to create something beautiful that is also functional for our family for generations. My wife's grandfather was a mason. In fact, he did countless stone walls here in town, including many on Old Marlboro, part of the Concord Museum, a few on Monument Street. And my father-in-law would absolutely want to participate in the building of that wall as well, since he did at his own home on Monson Road. So there is a lot of historical reasons why our family has a lot of ties to this. And I assure you, we want to be able to build something that everyone would be okay with. And I think furthermore, Kate and Scott have said that they could also build a demo for you guys to see along the way to ensure that it's kind of meeting the needs of the committee.
Yeah, if the wall was something that the commission wanted to approve, we could certainly build, start building a sample piece, have it approved, and then continue on our way doing that. For the fencing, originally the documents that we filed with the commission had shown a Chestnut Hill picket gate in the opening at the front of the wall. This fence over here was proposed to be a 6-foot high style picket privacy fence. So with some openings in the fence, and then a panel fence along the property side, and then a smaller piece of Chestnut Hill picket back here in between the house and the garage, and then another panel fence over here between the garage and the property line. After the discussion with the professor, trying to figure out how to.
Can you drag it over?
I don't know.
Yeah, click on.
Sorry. All right, I apologize. We made some edits to that to make the fence along the side of the property 4-foot high, more open picket, and the fence in the front over here to be a 4-foot high Chestnut Hill picket. And then extending that towards the street. We're going to plant to screen that. You'll see a planting plan in a moment, but it takes the, we edited the fences to make them shorter and more open.
Can you point out what fence you're talking about? I don't know what a Chestnut Hill picket is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chestnut Hill picket you see throughout town. This one is on Lexington. This one's on Walden. It's a fence of this style right here. And then the privacy picket is sort of a flat slatted picket fence, but there is space between the pickets. So the fence is still somewhat transparent. It's not fully opaque like a board privacy fence would be. And there is historic.
The yellow one is which fence is the yellow?
The yellow would be this fence, the sort of, it's a little more opaque than the Chestnut Hill picket, and it's, but not by much. And there is historic precedent for both those types of fences throughout the town.
The yellow piece is the back part of the property that would be barely visible. But yeah.
And that's the open picket that is here, right? This,
Yeah. Yep.
okay.
That's these fences in the middle of the.
And then the red is the upper fence here, correct?
Yep. The red is the Chestnut Hill picket, which is just a slightly fancier version, maybe you could say. But both of them seen throughout town at the front of properties.
And when possible, I guess our goal is to use hedges and other greenery. I do think it's very important to us, though, to have some ability to keep out animals and keep our 5 children in, especially because the twins are just born. So I think we're trying to have a balance of natural as well as some more substantive fencing.
Yeah, and I do have, the last diagram I'll show is a proposed planting plan. You can see where we're doing some screening and hedging to address some of those issues. In terms of paving, we're proposing to do, again, we said we narrowed this down to just a 12-inch strip of antique granite in between at the entrance to each of the driveways. The yellow part would be chip seal. The gray part is asphalt. After we talked to the professor, we actually made an adjustment to that to extend the chip seal further into the property. And that removed a cobble band we were proposing here. So it simplifies the whole driveway paving scheme and adds more chip seal towards the front of the property. And then
In this case, the solid band at the end is really only to delineate between the road and the driveway, as well as to keep the chip seal in. Mr. Fiore, I know you weren't on the last one, but I think that was a point of concern that maybe the chip seal could get out if there wasn't some way of keeping it in. So we tried to, given the sensitivity around that cobble at the end, we wanted to try to make it as diminutive as possible and really only be there to try to keep the chip seal in and safe for passengers on Lexington Road.
Yep.
And it also protects the edge of the asphalt, where the asphalt can get hot during the summer and break. The granite will be sturdy and won't allow that to happen.
And then the dark here is asphalt, correct?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that is all there as it is right now.
Okay.
So as part of, you may or may not remember, as part of the original garage plan, we did have originally approval for removal of the ramp, in part just because of craziness of having 5 children and life and everything else. We have not yet gotten around to that. So we're that ramp, which was originally approved with the garage, has not yet been removed. I think this is a much more thought out and better design plan, both for safety as well as aesthetics. We're obviously getting rid of a lot of stuff that wasn't really part of any plans. And this was, we love the asymmetry of our home. Some of it was added kind of piecemeal over decades. So I think this is an attempt to try to, get rid of the ramp, improve some things, and then also make it more functional for our family. And what they didn't necessarily show there too, there's a bunch of random kind of stone, I guess you call them circles in the front end of the property.
Yeah.
Kate's pointing them right there. Those would all be moved and repurposed elsewhere, either within the stone wall or something else. They're kind of there. I don't even know what the point was. You can still see them. Anyone that drove by during the holidays could see we put some little reindeer in one of the circles. But we're going to try our best to rectify whatever was already there and utilize the materials as best as humanly possible.
Yeah, they're really more like rock edging on plant beds.
So you have a planting plan you're going to show next? Is that it?
I've got a couple more diagrams and then I'm going to show that. If you'd like, I can show that first.
No, move ahead.
All right. Driveway diagram just indicates which, originally we were proposing a single strip of antique granite at both the driveway entrances. There was going to be antique granite here at the front entry. This was going to be granite cobbles and then antique granite around the area right off the front door. After Adam's discussion with the professor, that has been edited a little bit. The granite cobble band here has been removed, as I said previously. This remains as antique granite around this parking area. This has been extended and would be bluestone connecting the front walkway with the front door. And then these would remain the 1-foot strips of antique granite. And then the proposed planting plan shows how we'd be screening this fence here. We're proposing removing, there's an existing fence leading from the front to the back of the property along this side, which is in pretty sorry shape. We're proposing removing that and replacing it with a 5-foot hedge And then you can see the rest of the planting throughout the property. At the front of the property here, when we're if we remove this walkway here, it allows us to just sort of simplify and right now there's kind of a real assortment of random plants throughout the front of the property, and this will enable us to sort of reduce the palette, do larger plantings of a couple of species that are appropriate for the house, and really make a much more elegant presentation on the street side.
And allow for safety and keeping the children right.
Keeping the children in check. So that's, you know, we really took what the professors said to heart, took what you said to heart. Our primary concern is for the safety and security of the family, protecting kids from the road and giving the Mickelsons a bit more measure of privacy than they currently have from the street.
Great, so you're all set? Is that
Yes,
the end of
we
the
do.
presentation?
Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, let's start around. Tim? You're muted. Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and first of all, I think the plans are very, very nicely drawn, so I want to compliment you on that. And also, a lot of my concerns I had about, I was really actually concerned about the opaqueness of the fencing and the height of the fencing, the wood fencing, and you clearly addressed that. So I had really had more just some detailed questions, and if you just leave this plan up as it is right now.
Yep.
The gates, the cobbles that align with the front closest to Lexington Road, that cobble strip, they're there versus versus putting them at the gate. I guess that's just a question, as I would logically think the gate is the separation of inside and outside, and wouldn't the cobbles be more logically at the gates? Let me go through my questions, and then you can respond.
Yep.
So that's question number one. Question number two is the fence along Hawthorne, the red line doesn't connect back to the gate. You may have discussed that with Luis's wife. Don't know, but it just seems a bit odd that there's a gap.
Yeah.
There's this very formal, I'm not a real fan of the high symmetry formality of all the front, but I know you've been through a lot of work here. And it's separate from the wood fence, and you're taking the wood fence off on the other side, where I would expect a wood fence almost to connect to the posts of the gate, so that there's closure rather than being yard fence. It's a closure like the older fences around town. One question tied to that is what is the design of the gates? How high are they? And how high are all the various stone walls? I think, so I hopped around here a little bit, but I had stone wall heights, connection to stone walls from the wood fence, the location of the cobbles relative to the gates. And then I just couldn't find what the look of the gates are. It's probably in your package somewhere. I just missed it.
Yep. So I can take the first couple, then Kate, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great.
Thank you for the comments. So I guess the answer is, if there was consensus that we wanted to move the edging of the cobble back to where the gates are, that's completely fine with us. The reason it's portrayed the way it is now is only because then it allowed for a car to drive in without it being dangerous or sticking into the back end of the street. That was something that was I think discussed last time.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I wasn't talking about moving the gate. I was just moving the cobbles.
I think we're completely open to whatever the commission wanted on that front. So if there was consensus that it would be better to move it back a slight bit, we're completely open to that and happy to do so. The gap, that is just a mistake. We definitely needed to have that there. I think we're open to trying to find, yeah, anything. Yes, the answer is, I think the plan would be to have that gap be closed.
And the
Adam?
thought was that that gap was gonna be closed with evergreens.
Right,
The plantings do connect to the gates on either side. So it does close it off. It's just not formally closed off with a wall.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
The hedge closes to the gate here.
Right.
On
Yeah.
this side, we've got fence to this point, and then evergreens closing that gap.
right. It's
Um,
just fences tend, as you know, you looked at a ton of fences in Concord, they tend not to just end. They tend to always return to something. So that's I'll be interested to see what other committee members, I hear what you're saying about the planting.
Which is one of the reasons, I apologize.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We wanted to end the fence with a substantial evergreen so that the fence isn't just sort of ending on its own randomly, but will be anchored by an evergreen. In terms of your other questions, the fieldstone walls at the front would be no taller than 24 or 30 inches, so low and appropriate to other walls also along Lexington, such as at the gun house or at 201. These 221 walls of the same type of heights we've seen throughout town.
Okay,
And then the fences are
I think the gates in particular, he was.
it was the gates, yeah.
the driveway gate 4 foot high on, where's the, excuse me, driveway? I believe we thought that gate was going to be 4 feet high as well.
And are the piers associated with those gates also 4 feet roughly?
Yeah, they'd have to be at least 4 feet to hang the gates from them.
To hang the gate, correct?
Yep. And then I think in terms of your comment about moving the strip, the strip is where it was because it was sort of a visual extension of the wall, but
Right.
it also absolutely could make sense going in between the gate piers.
And from an aesthetic standpoint, the granite band where it's currently designed does allow for more chip seal, so more of that, small aggregate versus more asphalt.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Walter?
The first question I have is there a sketch of the view from street level from Lex looking into the front of the property anywhere? Have I missed that?
We have
All the
not
questions
produced-
about the height of the wall and the height of the gates and the height of the plantings and this and that would be taken care of very handily by that.
You mean an elevation sketch?
Exactly.
We have not done an elevation of this.
I would think that would be critical. Well, I do think it's critical to our understanding what this is going to look like from the street essentially. And everything else, you're dancing around everything else in a way and answering specific questions, looking at this from the sky down rather than from the street across, which I think is, as I say, I think it's essential and critical to this. I'm really hard pressed to see how all these things resolve and see what the balance is visually from not having that, say, as an elevation. Second thing coming back from the street there is I'm still not a fan of any of the granite strip there. I think we had extensive conversations about that and whether there was any precedent for them anywhere. I think in the notes that we had available for the meeting for background, there was mention of how another Lexington property had removed any plan to put granite along Lexington exactly for the reasons that we've spoken about constantly. So I still need to be convinced about that, whether it goes back to the gate or whether it stays where it is. If I remember Luis's consideration and question about that was that it was almost a false extension from the property out to Lexington, the way that it was pictured and conceived of, rather than allowing Lexington to approach the property, if that makes sense. I think there was questions about parking cars and buses along the strip there, and his point was that that was even still town property and not part of the property that we're talking about. That's another. And I guess I appreciate that the granite strip would be going to 12 inches instead of what's there. My question is, at one point we had granite strip that was put in place already, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And is this the location where it had been put in already?
I don't know if it's exactly where it is. We erroneously thought it was part of the original garage approval.
Right,
Again,
I understand. There was, I believe you were talking about the hardship of having to move it. And
I
so
said
my
we basically decided that if that's what the commission wants, then we will do our best to make sure we can make that effort and move it to wherever we needed to and do our best to meet the needs of the commission.
So, well, it's not the needs of the commission, frankly, it's the needs of the historic district. Just be clear about that.
Yeah.
So my question is, as I'm looking at this, there is a granite strip in the drawing. Is that granite strip? Is there currently a granite strip in that location on the property?
It would be the one that I think that exists there today is larger, and I think there was some.
But is it in that location?
Approximately, yes.
Currently, it's closer. Currently, it basically starts at the property line and moves into the property from there. What we're proposing would be inbound of the property line and basically where it currently ends.
I guess I can simplify my question, which is if this granite strip as proposed in the overhead view here goes into that location as you're proposing, does that mean that the currently installed granite strip in its entirety will be removed? And
Yes.
it will take its place. Okay. That was unclear to me.
Yeah.
And I'm still wondering about the stone wall in the front too, and certainly not having it be, well finished granite and all is a big plus. In some ways, the rougher unit becomes the closer it becomes to being a false representation of history there. So, if it were looking exactly like a witness wall from someplace else that had provided shelter to snipers, I'm not sure that it's a really good thing to be replicating that again in a place where it doesn't exist. But I'd like to see again what that looks like in elevation from the front.
And again, we're not trying to recreate history in any way.
No, well, I understand you're not trying to recreate history. I'm just saying that's a potential pitfall, and that you may end up doing that inadvertently.
In this case, our family is actually Masons, right? And so I think we're trying to.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
As well as that, and put something in that will be functional as well. I mean, I think you guys all know that the speed in which people drive up and down Lexington Road is frightening, right? And I think what we're trying to do is create a family home where we can raise our 5 kids and not worry at great lengths constantly about their safety. And I think this would be go a long ways to helping that as well.
I know that's been made very clear that your primary concern is safety. I understand that. I would just suggest that the commission's primary concern is history. That's all. We need to work it out so that it all works. I think those are my questions. I'd really like to see what I'm looking at. Even to the point here in this discussion of what's the wall going to look like. Show me 3 elevations from Lexington with 3 different styles of wall on it, so that we're talking about something. I was going to say solid, that doesn't work. Concrete, that doesn't work either. When we're talking about something that we can visually identify, let's leave it at that. Those are my questions. Thank you for the responses.
Walter, thank you. Kate?
I have minor questions about the walls and the fences. as, but Walter addressed them. I would like to see them from other perspectives. I have a big question to my fellow commissioners about their comfort of running a driveway across this front lawn. This has not been approved, has it?
I don't
can't-
believe so, nor discussed.
I
Really.
can't think of, I think this is my 8th year on this commission. I don't think we've ever allowed that. And I see in the narrative that the clients are looking for a safer way to exit onto Lexington, but you're still going to have to exit onto Lexington, even with this, at one end or another. And Concord is, yes, I see a couple of examples from Elm Street near the center of town, which have traditional horseshoe carriageways, but a lot of houses still, that have those, you still have to enter out onto a busy street. And I have, I can think of, we denied one of these on Monument Street, on Lower Monument. We've denied one on Lexington, somewhere around this area. That tremendously alters the appearance of this property from the Battlefield Road. That means then cars are going to be parked in it. I mean, it completely changes it.
So I think the goal is not to have our cars be parked there by any means. I think the main goal is truly, like, I'll be real, my mother-in-law is frequently scared to kind of back out onto Lexington Road. I can tell you, I don't love it either, truthfully. And I think this would just give us a way to have the ability to pull out front facing, which is one of the most important pieces of that. I can assure you, we will not have cars parked out there constantly. And that's why, we have ample place in the garage to keep cars and don't have any plans, I can truthfully say, to have anyone be parked out front, or nor do we plan to park out front. I think that's what we also did, try to put the chip seal there as well to limit the asphalty, look that hypothetically could occur when you try to do something like this. So I think it was mainly just an effort to try to find a way to meander and get a car out front facing, as opposed to having to back out into Lexington Road, which I can tell you is not easy or fun. And was the main impetus of this.
I have been to that property because I knew the prior owners, and it's a pain but one has to do this in driveways all over town. Did a 3-point turn and turned around.
We didn't want to take out trees either. That was the other piece of it. So, like, we probably could have done it a lot easier and simpler if we decided we could take down a tree. We didn't really want to try to do that. We wanted to try to keep, these beautiful trees that exist on the property, and best meander around them in a way that was able to kind of keep them all alive and well.
No, I mean, I can understand why you would want one for your needs, but the fact is, once it's up, it's up. We also have to think of precedent too, and not just, a current owner and a current project. And so, ideally you'll be there safe and happy for a long time. But things change, you move, that curb cut is there, that driveway is across the front lawn, and that's just there.
I don't expect us to ever leave. And that was one of the main reasons why we did discuss with Professor Burzbitia, was to try to push the driveway up a little bit, so it would not necessarily even be as visible behind that stone wall. That was one of the goals there as well, to limit the aesthetic view of that. I agree that if people did truly park there, that would be less simple. But I can assure you, again, I suspect this will be the home we keep for, I hope our children someday move into this home. We have no plans to ever leave. My wife waited her entire life to move back to Concord, and we are not going anywhere anytime soon, if ever. But I understand the concern, and if there's ways we can assuage any concerns that you have beyond the ones that I'm doing verbally, let us know. We'll do our best.
I don't know if there's any way to assuage it. I mean, I take issue with the driveway running across the front lawn of this house, that we have denied in a number of cases before, not this property, in others. And I can't think of one where we've approved it. Can anybody else?
I would say that I'm speaking out of turn here. But since you brought up the question, Kate, I was surprised at the fact that they asked for this curb cut again, just across the street, kitty corner across, and we have not heard from the public yet. But there was a big outcry from the neighbors about the property across the way where there's a driveway going up the street. They had the same situation, and we denied the curb, the second driveway there, for a variety of reasons. And one was particularly because the neighbors found it was objectionable to have that much driveway. So, there is the idea of it going across the front of the lawn. There's also the idea that we have not allowed this sort of situation just across the street a couple of months ago.
We did talk to all of our neighbors and including Dr. and Professor Brisbithia, as well as our adjacent neighbors, and none of them did express any concerns. Because we did try to make sure we had the input of neighbors to make sure that we were meeting their needs as well. And none expressed any. I mean, in particular, I guess we even worked extensively with Professor Brisbithia on this particular design. So I don't believe there's concern amongst neighbors, at least in this case.
Interesting. Kate, other things?
The other things are, the gates on the proposed driveway. Would those be board gates? Would they be picket gates? Let the record show. I'm still opposed to this driveway, but since you're asking about other questions, what kind of fencing would be on the gates?
The proposal for that is for a Chestnut Hill picket style. Trying to find that.
And do you have examples of other gated driveways around town in districts?
Actually, just down the road at 336 Lexington, there's a quite unhistoric aluminum gate.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we would be proposing would be a gate, Chestnut Hill picket style.
Does the one at 366 have 2 entrances and gates at both?
No, this is a single entrance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there is this house closer to the center of town where there is an old circular drive. Part of it is not used, but there is still a gate across the end of it, of a similar style.
Wow. Okay. No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda?
I would agree with Walter that we need to have something that this looking down from above is not what most people are going to be seeing, unless they're looking at a drone shot that somebody's taking. We need to see the front and where you think this driveway is going to go, although I suspect that there will be no one on our committee that will actually vote to have this driveway put to be extended across the front of the lawn. I really do think that this will, and again, I want to see a picture of the stone wall. So to see how much really would block that from the road, but I can't tell because I can't see it. But we were very unified in our decision to not allow the person that's practically across the street from you to cut a second driveway. I'm personally, your home is lovely, but I think you would be making a major I hate to use the word mistake, but I'm not sure that it would be as attractive as it currently is. I'm sort of looking at this on my screen of your rendering and wondering, the little green box with the car there, that does not allow you to do a K-turn and go out. if you pull in there. And honestly, just probably taking one tree out right below that green box would give you enough room to turn around. I realize this is not an easy thing to figure out, but I definitely could not vote for the driveway across the way I'm seeing it now. If you want to show us different pictures, if you want us to come and take a site visit and you can put, you know, some sort of, you know, stakes up to show us the width of that driveway. It's very hard to tell right now, really, how wide that would be. And then something else that would show us how high and the fence, I mean, the stone wall would be. I just think we need more information, and yet I wouldn't be too optimistic on your part that we would say yes to the extension of the driveway.
Linda, anything else?
No, I'm done.
Great. My comments are that I agree. I don't like the driveway across the front at all. And looking at the car on scale within that space, frankly, my driveway is about the size of that little pad, and I make a 3-point turn and go out all the time. It's not a hard thing to do. So I don't know why you couldn't do it in this case. Secondly, we certainly need an elevation. I'm not sure if we need a site visit, but if you want to do that, we'll certainly do it. But we do need an elevation so we can get a real feel for what this is going to look like from Lexington Road, because this is a major change that you're proposing here. So and I agree with most of the other comments that have been made. So that's my say. Now I'm opening it up for public comments, and then Adam, we can after that public comments, you can comment more if you'd like on our thoughts. Are there public comments? Anybody from the public? I don't see a raised hand anywhere. No, okay. Adam, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I guess, so we appreciate the input of everyone. I guess, just so we can kind of guide our efforts, I think, you know, ultimately, we don't want to waste anyone's time and want to be mindful of the needs of the town as well as our family. If we were to try to remove that front driveway, that seems to be the most disagreeable piece of it. And just kind of forgo whatever difficulties are of driving, maybe find a way of reworking the inside of the driveway to make it more usable. Is that a plan that you believe could find consensus? Because I know there's been some people that said, oh, even if you did anything with that front driveway, they wouldn't approve it. Is there a way, is that the piece in your minds that is the sticking point at this point? And if we could come back with a design that was largely the same without that front driveway, would that be a largely amenable plan?
I think I've heard a number of things. I think removing the driveway would go a long way to getting this approved. But I think there's some questions about the stone walls and how this all works. So I think an elevation is going to be crucial to getting this thing approved, so we get a feeling for the walls and how this all works together, and the plantings work together. I think that's going to be crucial. And I'm not taking note here of everything that was said. You probably did, but I think that having an elevation and some measurements, so we see what you're dealing with here for the height of the wall and other things, is going to be tremendously helpful in getting this thing approved. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Sure. I'll say I agree with other commissioners that I would not approve that driveway. And so the question isn't, will it make it, is that the major stumbling block? And if that's removed, then everything else is smooth. I think it's just a given that is not going to be approved. So don't even think of it in terms of, will that grease the wheel for everything else? It just, that, in my opinion, needs to be taken away from the proposal. I think that's really clear. It looks to me, given the scale of the car, you know, to address that a little further, that you don't need to take that tree down. given the width in front of the garage there. And by the way, I have absolutely no depth perception. So
I would say right now, the
I-
width in front of the garage is not possible to back out of there.
it's not possible to.
Now, maybe if the way that middle piece is reworked, maybe we could find a way to do that. But as it is today, it's not possible to back
Well,
out.
this is going to sound really snide, but maybe it's a driver education situation. You know, and frankly, as I say, I have no depth perception.
You'll have to bring that up with my mother-in-law, and I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, quite frankly, if the difference is having the driveway across the front there, which establishes precedent for historic districts in the town, it's not going to happen. Or your mother-in-law gets a little bit of guidance on how to turn her car around in a tighter space.
No, it just can't be turned around. It just has to be backed out. But
Yeah,
that's,
you know, and frankly, I don't even understand fully how having that leg over on the driveway makes it any easier. If you're backing away, starting at the garage, say, and you're backing down that driveway, a dog leg there that goes, 6 feet to the left of things as we're looking at here is every bit as effective for getting you out, nose out onto Lex as having that entire driveway.
anyway, is there any other pieces of it that you think that we need to be uber focused on?
Of the proposal?
Yeah, we're trying to come back with something obviously that.
Yeah, I understand. I'll be conversational. So I've never been a fan of the granite strips there. You know that.
I understand. Yeah, and that's why we did try to diminish them greatly.
Yeah, I understand.
and
half of something objectionable is half as objectionable, but it still ends up to.
Are there any other materials that you think would be amenable in your mind, and ways of keeping chip seal that would not be problematic to the adjacent road?
So, I've used chip seal and things like that in driveways in the past. I used to laugh that I was sending the gravel from the end of my driveway, to the next town down major road when I was frankly in Newburyport. We have gravel and chip seal in combination where I'm now, which is on Sudbury Road, which is every bit as nasty as Lex to pull out on. Probably we're at the drag strip at the end down to the light, so it's probably even worse. But driveway materials can stay in place to a much higher degree than we give them credit for. Sometimes they're smarter than we think they are. The concern I have about the granite strip is that there is not precedent down Lexington that I'm aware of for that. I think we've had this conversation as well. If I'm wrong and every other driveway has a granite strip on it, fine. But it's especially given to the 250th. Frankly, I'll say again, we're charged with maintaining proper history. And this is a very important road in the country. It's a very important road in town. And to be, granite stripping in different places, as evidenced again by the what I think was a minor tempest about granite across the street here. It's not historically precedented. And as soon as we put it in a place, it becomes the precedent, as Kate's saying. So, those are both the things. And again, I'd like to see an elevation because I would want to see what this is all looking like. So to answer your question specifically, is there anything else here that would make me feel better about it? Eliminating the granite strip would make me feel better. I think it's an absolute non-starter to be putting a driveway across the front. And as long as I'm going on, show me an elevation and show me what that wall that you're proposing putting up there is going to look like, because I don't want it to look like it was there in 1775, nor do I want it to look like it was just put in 2015, jarringly and different than everything else. I know that's not the complete answer, but that's what I can give you right now.
Thank you.
Great. I hope you've gotten enough guidance out of that, but I think the elevation will go a long way. Eliminating the driveway and the elevation will go a long way to moving this along. Does anybody want to make a motion at this point? And again, I'll point out The motions are to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject. Do I have a motion?
In the spirit of comedy, I move, COMITY, I move that we continue the application for 462.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Tim, is that you? I can't see you on here. The plans are still up.
I'm not appearing for some reason, but yes, that was me.
Okay, Tim
Sorry about
seconded.
that.
Let me go around. Start with you, Tim, so I don't forget you this time. Your vote on this to continue.
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Melinda,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and did I miss anybody? No, and I'm an aye. Thank you very much.
We'll work to get something together for you guys as soon as humanly possible.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now moving on to continued public hearings. And the first one is the Trinitarian Congregational Church, 54 Walden Street, Main Street Historic District, to replace 2 existing floodlights and add a second post light to match an existing post light. That was your original application. And who's here? Steve, are you the person from the church?
I am
Yeah.
right here.
Why don't you lead us through your revised proposal?
Terrific. Thank you. Good evening. Shall I share my screen? Good. So at the last hearing, we proposed 2 different exterior lighting changes. The first one was to replace 2 existing incandescent floodlights with 2 new LED floodlights. The proposed floodlights were similar, slightly fewer lumens and a cooler temperature range. The feedback we received was a concern about the overall brightness and the interest in reducing the overall quantity of light. And if you recall, we had actually installed 1 LED fixture and we're anticipating installing a second one. As I pointed out at the time, we were not trying to thwart your regulations. We were simply thinking that the best way to evaluate was to see the actual fixture. So that is one part of our proposal. The second part of our proposal had been to match the existing post light on the Hubbard Street side with a second post light that was identical to it. So that's the easy one. We have rescinded that idea and are now proposing 3 bollard lights 10 feet apart. There was concern that the post light was altogether too bright, ignored the dark sky requirements, and was inappropriate. So I asked the commission last meeting and received a certain consensus that task lighting that was not historic in nature, but would simply add some safety lighting to that pathway and not create a superabundance of light was a preferable solution there. And as far as the front facade floodlights go, I floated the notion at the last hearing that we could get along with just 1 light instead of 2. The committee I serve on felt otherwise, and we are here to amend that proposal. And we would like to request a second light, but a much smaller one. So bear with me. This is a recently snapped photograph of the single LED light that is on the post office side of the yard area, aimed up at the steeple. And as you can see, the lower portion of the facade is pretty dark. So what we are proposing is a second, much smaller, less than half the lumens light to fill in the lower portion of the facade. So the large bright lights and the smaller lower light as a second light added to the facade there. I'll continue on. The bollard light we're proposing is a black 42-inch, 36 to 42-inch tall light with a dome top, 24 watts and 3000 K color rendition. These are the images. I chose placing them 10 feet apart so that we would have approximately 2-foot candles of illumination continuously as a minimum across that span of the pathway. So just to summarize, we are proposing a second smaller light, floodlight LED on the facade, and 3 bollard lights along the pathway. Thank you.
Okay, let me start through on comments from the commissioners. Kate?
Hi, good evening. Steve, could you tell me what's there right now? Because I was there at 6:30 tonight to get a good look before this meeting. Just for the facade.
So right now, this actual light has been installed. It's a 78 watt, 8900 lumen, 5000 K LED floodlight. And this picture was taken February 3rd, so several weeks ago. This picture has now been secured to its base and shouldn't be flopping down the grass anymore. And so I'm expecting that what you saw this evening is this picture would match this picture here pretty closely.
Which actually I thought was an enormous amount of light. So I would have a hard time coming around to the additional light to illuminate the entire facade from street to steeple tip, because I also drove around and looked at the other 3 churches that are in the near vicinity, First Parish and the Catholic Church and the Christian Scientist Church. And the Catholic Church, which is right on Monument Square, as we know, has a fair amount of illumination. However, it doesn't go all the way up its steeple. I would say maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of that building is illuminated, but not all the way up to its steeple by any measure. It's also painted gray in a number of parts, so that sort of softens the reflection. The other 2 churches are illuminated from the ceiling down in their porticos and have no additional lighting. And so when I drove past Tricon for a second time after seeing those, it just struck me as an absolutely sufficient amount of light, particularly if it didn't strike me that the very lower level was particularly dark, because I knew you wanted this. You have many events at Tricon for the community, and you're looking for illumination for safer passage. But I can't, I would be it did not occur to me like, oh yeah, they need that additional light. So I guess what's up there now, what I saw today, is what you're showing in this photograph. And it is a little more light. I tried to take a picture and I didn't capture it. It's a little more light in person than my photos suggested. So I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I have the similar concerns, having looked at those churches myself, and all this effort on dark sky, and yet I just find, and I commented on this last time, that the idea of lighting a facade with floodlights, I just think there's got to be a better way for Concord and Concord churches to address this. And I know it's been done for 50 years, but it's sort of the most basic, anti-night dark sky lighting you can do. I imagine if you're in a plane flying over Concord, you would see these floodlights pointed up, coming off the church or coming off the Catholic Church, which is also, I find, very bright. So I guess I've given the enormity of what's has been lit here and what is being proposed, really, in my mind, is it would take some messing around with one versus two fixtures, moving them around and taking a look at these things and seeing what the effect is, rather than just accepting this, that, well, it's been done this way for 50 years. Let's just continue this blast of light on the facade. I think there's more interesting ways to light the facade, but it's just a chance to take some portable fixtures and play around them as one idea, just to see what you get. And I know there's an existing fixture out there that's quite bright now. I guess we didn't approve that. The commission hasn't approved that previously, so it's shouldn't be taken as a fait accompli. But do you need to, as Kate said, do you need to light the whole spire? Can you just light the primary gable portico that's and let the rest of it sort of fade into darkness that goes up? Could it be two smaller lights, one smaller light? And then just my few comments on the bollards. I think that's much improved. I personally have no concerns about that, but I do have a lot of concerns about the enormity of light on this facade. Thank you.
Walter?
Then Tim pretty much said it. I mean, my first thought on this was, can we try moving the one, I know it's been fixed in place properly, Steve, but can we adjust the bright one down and see what that looks like? I understand the concerns your committee might have about it being unevenly lit, and for 50 years it's been lit evenly, and we should do that. But I am agreeing with Tim about the dark skies. Just because it's been done for 50 years doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be done all the time. To me, it's rather bright. I've looked at it. I understand it's not as bright as it might be, but I would be a lot happier, I guess, if it were at half the brightness that it is even. And it's hard, perhaps impossible, to light the spire all the way up without having flash up to the very nice folks who are flying out of Hanscom all the time. I'm sure they can see it. As far as the bollards go, yay, much improved. I think that's really good. My first thought on the black one was it looked rather futuristic as it was round. I saw the squarish white one and thought, oh, maybe that's more in keeping with things, but I'm happy with any of those. I think it's a fine way to illuminate that walk. And the modernity of that fixture is just fine in my book. Maybe not exactly what you wanted to hear about the facade, but that's my thought.
Thank you, Walter. Melinda?
I have a question. How long do you light this church up for? Is this on all night? Do you turn it off at 1 a.m.? Do you turn it off at 3 a.m.? What's the schedule on this?
Judy Walpole I saw her name on the grid. She's the church administrator, and perhaps she knows that answer. I do know they come on automatically at dusk, and I honestly don't know that Judy should tell us when they turn off.
I think that, certainly it's a beautiful building, but there is such a thing as light pollution in this day and age. And do you really need that much? It's also probably somewhat annoying to some of the neighbors to have it that bright, until late at night. But I really would like to know if you turn it off at 10 o'clock, maybe I wouldn't be quite as against the illumination that, it really does pop, and it really is pretty. But who else is looking at it after 10 o'clock? Probably nobody, or very, very few. So maybe you could just reduce the amount of time that you light it up. At the same time, maybe have a little less light from the portico up.
Judy, I see your hand
Yeah.
raised. You want to
Yeah,
add to this?
the timers are set, so the lights go off at 10 o'clock. The one exception is Christmas Eve. We changed them to go off at midnight.
So they go off at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
They come on at dusk and go off at 10.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Um,
And if I could just say one more thing.
Sure.
There really is a safety issue that we're trying to address here also.
If it's a safety address, I'm wondering why you're not putting small lights in the lawn that would disappear, but during the day, but that would illuminate it enough so that people wouldn't fall. It seems to me that sending all that light straight up isn't doing what you're suggesting is your need, which is for safety. I would think you'd want much lower lights down along the ground.
Melinda, anything else?
No.
My comments, I actually like the whole thing lit, particularly now that I know it goes off at 10 o'clock. I would like it more subtly lit. It seems to be very bright, and I don't know if the main light could be toned down so that it's not quite the brightness that it is. And I'm also in favor of the smaller light, because I think the smaller light would light the bottom, and it's a safety issue. So you know, that those are my thoughts. In terms of the bollards, it's great. It's a good way to go. So that's a much of an improvement. Steve, let me see if there's any public comments. Any comments from the public? There were some last time. No. Steve, anything to add?
I guess I want to say this in the friendliest way possible. It's a procedural question, but so currently there are 2 incandescent 8900 lumen 500 watt incandescent bulbs that have been, I rounded way down from what Judy told me. She thought that this facade had been illuminated for 75 years. So am I right that we could repair and replace the ones that the floodlights we have as a matter of a simple repair?
Yes, if you're not making any changes there, you could keep what you have now.
And
Is that correct? And is that correct? If they make no changes other than repair them, we can't do anything about that, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So if you want to make no changes, you're fine.
And so our objective from the outset was to simply replace decrepit lights and save a huge amount of energy costs by switching from incandescent to LED. We find ourselves in a whole different discussion, which is certainly a worthwhile one. I guess I just wanted to understand the rules.
That's you know, that's the sort of the quagmire. If you want to keep it that way, there's nothing we can do about it. I'd like to think we can meet you halfway on this, if it's going to save you in energy costs and save the environment. So I don't quite know where that is. Any suggestions from my fellow commissioners?
Well, I will say that I think, Steve, the request presented an opportunity to have a discussion about toning things down from where it is. I think that's the crux of what this conversation is, and not anything else. Sure, you can replace in kind and keep it just the way that it is. I would think that there should be, given that it's 2024, some thought given to replacing incandescents with LEDs and set up a protocol for being able to do that without it turning into a whole new can of worms and fixture. I think your presentation is complicated a little bit by the fact that you're talking about the matching the path lights as well as this too. If it were just purely this or the two things separated, it might be a little bit conceptually a little bit simpler. Yeah, I, as a commissioner here, I would say I would be pleased if there were a way to tone the lighting down a little bit, given the opportunity to replace things. But certainly if you go back to where it was before, yeah, you're more than free to do that.
No, I don't mean to be difficult.
No, I don't think anyone is saying that you are.
I don't want it to be lost in this conversation that the current proposal is less than 3/4 of the existing number of lumens. And what you're asking us to do is to reduce the lumens by half. So there's a pretty significant reduction in any case.
Dennis,
Yes.
this is Tim. Steve, is the existing fixture, that's the 78-watt fixture?
Sorry, existing is a funny word. We have installed this very fixture as a test, and so is it currently existing? Yes.
It's a test fixture to see how it looks.
It's an unapproved test replacement for the fixtures that was there.
This is a bit arbitrary, but just, I think, I guess what I'm hearing from the commission, and I would think that Steve and the church is they want to reduce energy costs. So going to LED is a good thing. And the question is how much can we reduce the lighting? If you're going to do that, can we reduce the lighting on the church in the process, which is more energy reduction? So it's hopefully potentially a win-win for us and for the town and for the church. Well, I guess where I'm going with this is and this is kind of the guesswork, which is why I was suggesting a mock-up, but what if you tried out 2 of your small fixtures, 2 of the 26 watts, rather than a mix of the 26 plus the very bright one, and see how it looks. Then you substantially cut the amount of light. You've got 2 fixtures, so it's not an asymmetric lighting thing, and you can spread them out.
There is a cost involved.
To be direct, the lighting rep was kind enough to supply this fixture. It's a $1,500 fixture.
I thought that was a loaner fixture or something. Maybe I missed.
Well, it was a loaner until it's an expensive fixture which we happen to have possession of at this point, but I can't be casual about more mock-ups. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, so where are we on this? Steve, at this point, do you want to move ahead with approval of the bollards and withdraw the lighting until you come back with another plan?
I would certainly like to get the bollards approved. I would like to alter the proposal to propose the installation to the continued operation of this one fixture, and we'd like permission to install the second fixture, but only use it the handful of times a year when there's an after dark event at the church.
So what you're proposing would look like this. If we approve it, it would look like it does right now, with the exception of events where people are going in and out the base of the church, and then you turn on the smaller light.
For the brief amount of time when it's actually needed, you can codify that any way you'd like, but that certainly would our intention would be strictly additional light when needed on the very few times of the year.
My fellow commissioners, thoughts on that proposal?
I want to hear what Kate has to say. Kate, there?
I'm thinking,
Mhm.
I'm thinking, could you could you reiterate that, Steve? I'm sort of trying to visualize the Venn diagram in my head of what's staying and what's going. Bollards stay, bollards we may just do separately.
So the proposal is to continue with exactly what you saw earlier this evening, what's been installed, with the footnote that we would like to install this smaller fixture, but only use it Christmas Eve and Monday, Thursday, and the handful of evening all church events.
Oh. I know that sounds reasonable, but I always feel that that's kind of wobbly ground. Like conditional things that require human employment.
Well, think of it in terms of the light as it is there, and there would always be the smaller one on unless it is humanly shut off, which is what is proposed to do. So basically fleshing out the rest of the facade.
Okay, that's and they can modify the proposal along those lines, right, in the course of this meeting?
Sorry, yes. So I was just thinking that they probably would need to do a partial withdrawal of the second post light, was described in the, in the, sorry, in the legal ad. So there would need to be a partial withdrawal of the second post light.
Okay.
Right.
So if we vote, what I'm trying to do is frame up a vote here. And how would you frame that to approve you're saying we need a partial withdrawal of the post lights. The post light, and then we need approval of the 3 bollards. And then we're floating out approval of the lighting as it is now with this one fixture with occasional use of a smaller one. And that's what we'd be voting on.
That sounds perfect.
Does that sound perfect?
Are we able to vote on the bollards if the bollards have not been proposed in the legal ads, you're saying?
I think you could make it a condition. Right?
What, subject to anyone objecting? It'll
They are in the application.
in the weeds, it eliminates the possibility for the public to be aware that that's what's being voted on, right? If it's not in the legal notice.
There's responding to requests from the HTC, so I think that should be legitimate.
Okay.
So
Well,
does anybody want to make a motion? Is that where we are at this point?
no, I don't want to make a motion yet because I would not approve the second facade fixture. But I would approve other things. Is anyone, I got the impression that some of the other commissioners might felt that way.
So you would approve the bollards and the LED light as it is now, but not the second light.
Well, I'm not even wild. I'm not even wild about the LED light. I mean, if I think we kind of said it's a lot. Coming off at 10 is helpful because I wondered the same thing. But no, it's a beautiful building and other things are lit there, but also a lot of it's a lot of other houses are kind of on the darker side and are obeying all this night sky compliant, dark sky compliant stuff, and it's really bright. It'd be like a Really don't want to be the bad guy on the church, but
Well, I do have I have a question, again, if this can just be a roundhouse, which is, Steve, since you don't own the 78-watt fixture, there's a possibility, other than the fact that it would not have been placed experimentally, there's a possibility of choosing a smaller than 78, though larger potentially than 26 fixture from your supplier, I would imagine. No, if there were a rheostat where you could turn down the 70-watt to 55 watts and go, oh, that still illuminates well enough, it's calmer, that'll make the HDC doubters happier and probably cost less money. If that's, I'm just asking if that is a possibility as well. It doesn't.
I certainly appreciate the logic. The economic fact is we own this one now, and
You do, okay, you do. That was unclear. That was being asked. Okay, so you do own this one.
yes.
And
Okay.
and it only takes one light bulb. You can't put in a smaller light bulb in this fixture.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But dimming on such on these sorts of LED fixtures is enormously complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we want to move this along, so we want to continue this and have
Can I say, I'm going to say one more thing too, which is, Kate, the option here is, if not this, then it is 2 existing that are exactly the same firepower, right? Just not LED. So redoing the existing lighting, which involves 2 fixtures of 8,900 lumens, is that correct? Or more or less, or for argument's sake, that's the option. So it's either the status quo as it is, which is twice as much light as this, or the endorsing the owned single 78 here, either with or without.
Right, I see. Could we have times when the smaller one would be used?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, I mean,
Swap their positions and use the smaller one to light the main part of the facade, and turn on the big one to light up the front for safety.
Well, this is Tim again. Walter, you were defining 2 options here. I mean, the third option is we asked Steve to go back to the church and relay our concerns about the brightness of these lights.
Sure.
We understand, we appreciate, I deal with church budgets myself all the time. I know the pain of that, but it wasn't, we were being handed an existing fixture that's there. It's really not our decision as, we try to accommodate it, but the reality is I think there's pretty strong consensus across the commission, if I'm hearing it correctly, about the brightness even of this existing fixture. So, but I would say we propose, unless Steve said, just forget it, it's not going to happen, is we ask him to go back and discuss this with his committee and relay our concerns about even just the current fixtures being very bright. We endorse LED, we endorse night sky. We'd like to light less on the church. We want to light this, quintessential New England facade beautifully, as they do too. So we're all wanting to accomplish the same thing. It's just a matter of degree. And it's not our decision about how to reuse that fixture or buy another fixture. That's what Steve has to, what I'm suggesting, Steve has to go back and see if the church is willing to consider this and not just stay with the energy consuming incandescents.
Steve, do you want to revisit this one more time with your committee or?
Candidly, I would love to move this along, as I know you would too. How about if we take the smaller fixture off the table entirely? Just forget about it.
I'm not sure that's the resolution.
Yeah, Steve, I think we probably would be best served if we can have a continuance and come back.
Okay, so I still need a motion. And can we get the bollards moved along at least and approve those?
Yeah, so you should be able to do that. I would think, you could, right. Right, I'm sure there's a way to do it. We can figure out how to word it, and then you can create an amendment to approve the second piece, or do whatever you want to do with the second piece.
So we need a motion, and I think I'm hearing the motion is for a continuance of the application, but that we can move ahead with the bollards. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm trying to help frame this up for someone who's going to make this motion because I can't. Does someone want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I motion that we approve the 3 bollard lights tonight, and that we continue the discussion on both the larger and the smaller light going forward at a later meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Let me go around then. Walter,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Melinda,
Aye.
Kate,
aye.
Dennis, aye. Thank you very much. This has not been an easy situation. But I look forward to more creative solutions to the facade. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next hearing is, they got it right here, is,
There you are.
let me see, is the Bank of America, 52 Main Street Historic District, to make lighting modifications.
Good evening.
Matthew, are you the person?
I'm the guy. Good
Okay.
evening. Matt Bonbasi from Bowler Engineering, representing CBRE, who's the agent for Bank of America. I think as most remember, this project was in front of the commission, I think, years ago for a very extensive lighting project. Was politely declined. We were back at the last meeting with a much reduced project, but we did have a couple of comments which we had addressed and resubmitted. I'll share screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are two main comments that I had written down from the previous discussion. The first one, and probably the most prominent one, was we had proposed kind of a gooseneck lighting fixture, which wasn't particularly well received. I think the general consensus I got is that it was a little too much, and that these lights were more utilitarian, and the gooseneck fixtures weren't really appropriate. So we've updated the plan to use more of a, I guess a utilitarian or a smaller compact wall pack light. It's 12 by 9. It's about as small as they come as far as wall packs go. As similar lumens, dark sky compliant, fully downcast, low lighting, no lighting coming off the property, but again, a much smaller light fixture. I kind of wanted to scale these on and put them on the photo, so that would be the one there on that back left corner, and then 2 more proposed here along the back of the building. So the same locations, or those 3 same locations as before, just with the smaller, more compact light fixture. They're also 3000 K color temperature, so a yellower color temperature. The second comment we heard, at least from at least one commissioner, was there was 4 lights proposed as part of the original application. The one here at the entrance to the ATM, the one here at the accessible ramp, and the one here at the door. The bank had actually proposed one over here as well. And the reason they did that is there's certain security measures that they're in, thresholds that they're hitting, in particular distance from entrances and things like that. But I certainly understood the comment from the commissioner, which is this light didn't nearly have the same purpose as these other 3, which have a very much more clear purpose. So we've had the plan updated just to remove the fixture from that location. So that's that. Those are two comments. I'm hoping those meet what was discussed the last time, but I'd be happy to run through any other questions or comments the commission has.
Good, thank you. Walter.
The overriding question I have is, and I don't have history for this, maybe you do. Were these light positions proposed in the past applications and rejected for any particular reason, or does anyone here know that? Is there precedent for the commission having said no to them specifically?
I can pull up the previous lighting project from a year ago if that's helpful. The lighting project was a much different project. So that project had multiple pole lights, multiple wall pack lights everywhere. It was probably 20 times or more the lighting that's proposed now. So I think that was the reason for the denial.
Yeah, remembering the history of this, he's absolutely right. They've pared this way down. I think the positions of the lights are fairly where they were in the original applications. There are just fewer of them.
Yes. That's what struck me.
You know, just fewer of them. So it's you know, it's certainly a much simpler plan. And the light fixtures are certainly, you can barely see them. So
they don't look Californian at all, do they?
No.
Walter, any
beyond that, they seem, I'm not sure what their visual impact is, you know, off property. That was one of the questions I had last time, I think it was when those measurements were made. I'm much happier with this than I am with the California one before. If there's a compelling need/reason being shown for them to be in these locations, I would have a much harder time saying no to this than I did before. But I'd like to hear what other people have to say as well.
Thanks, Walter. Tim?
Matthew, can you just show the photo of the fixture that's sort of in the alleyway?
Yeah,
the picture you have.
I have this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that one. This is just a total detail question, but I'm just wondering, would it be better if that thing was over that door? And if you go back to the site plan, it's less likely, it may be just less intrusive of the people walking down that nice alleyway past Main Street Cafe is quite a lovely little walkway. I'm guessing a bit here as to whether it's better there or better over the door, but I'm just trying to make these, I mean, these are much better fixtures. I'm just trying to make them as least intrusive. I know there's not much spread. It says it's down to 0 foot candles by the time you get to the walkway, but there's still going to be presence. So that's the only minor comment I had. I think this is much better.
Thanks.
Quick question, I guess.
Great. Kate? You muted.
How's that? Okay.
Yep, there you go. You're back.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the other one being the other plan of like a year and a half ago, being much more extensive. This seems to have answered our concerns, our most recent concerns with what you submitted earlier, and I have no questions.
Great. Melinda?
I think it's just a pleasure when the institution comes back and pretty much takes all of the suggestions that we made. And I think you've done a great job in listening to what we had to say, and I think it's great.
Good, thanks. I have nothing else to add. I think it looks fine. Anyone want to make a motion to approve this application?
I move that we approve this application for Bank of America as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. I guess we'll give Tim the second this time. Let me go around. Walter,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Melinda,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you very much. Whoa, that went a long ways. Okay, so we are done with the public hearings, I think, Ann, is that true? I think so at this point. So the other business, we need to, I have some comments to make, but let me make those at the end, and let me move to the library's potential installation of a sundial. I saw Sherry there someplace. Sherry, are you making a presentation for the library? You're muted. You're muted.
Yes,
there
actually,
you are.
actually, no. You can see I'm in the library. But William Andrews, who's here, and he is the artist. And so he's the one who is actually going to give the presentation. And Brian Rossborough also has been working with him on the concept and the possibility. And just to clarify, well, of course, this is just an informal discussion, but the application isn't wouldn't be submitted by the library per se. It's a project that's being done by an independent group, and they have spoken to us about the library as being a good location, and the Library Corporation is supportive of the concept as well as the location. And so we just want to start some informal discussion about the possibility. But money would have to be raised for it, not by the library, but by an independent group for it to happen. So.
Great, thank you.
So-
So who's making the presentation so we can see what you're talking about? Great. You're muted.
Is that better?
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me?
You're here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for staying this late. It's, I admire the
Thank
work.
you for staying this late.
Well, anyway, I wanted to give a short presentation to show you what it's about and get any kind of feedback that you might have on it. It's not just an ordinary sundial. This is something I came up with a project about 20 years ago. I made several of these, both in this country and in England, and there's one in France as well. So there are various sundials in different locations. I met about a year ago with Brian, who's a longtime friend, Brian Rossborough, and he was involved in the commissioning of the longitude dial at Deerfield Academy. He was on the board, and we'll be seeing that as part of the presentation. I think if we can sort of dive in, we can start with a short introduction. It's a short 4-minute video that'll give you an idea of what this is all about. Anne, are you able to launch that? Is Anne around?
She is. There she is.
Yeah, good. We need volume.
Can you hear me?
Three to the left from the play arrow.
I think that's one of them.
Oh, no, that's not. I'm sorry. That's not it. I'm leaning back.
No, no.
Hmm.
I played it earlier today and it was fine.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, do you want to skip to your presentation? Or?
All right. It would be nice if we try once more. Well, anyway, maybe we can show this next time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't seem to get it to work.
That's all right, Anne. No worries. Let's go straight into the presentation. Anyway, I came up with this idea. My background is the history of time measurement. I've been involved I was trained as a clockmaker. I used to look after the clocks at Greenwich. And then I came to a museum called the Time Museum in Illinois, where I spent 10 years. And then I went on to Harvard looking after their collection of historical instruments. And in about 2000, I went out on my own. And I had seen this 16th century idea for a sundial. And I was so intrigued by it that I decided I'd try and make one. So if we could get the slide presentation, and you have that? Great, okay. So we can go on to the first slide here. So this gives a sort of introduction. I just wanted to expand on what Sherry was saying. I'm appearing in my own capacity as artist creator, not as a representative of the Library Corporation. The project is still in its conceptual stage. I'm offering this preview so as to inform our design process and help facilitate approval in the future. And we will only pursue approval if we're successful with fundraising. That's a sort of caveat. We've raised 50,000 so far. The entire project will cost about 450, so we've got 400,000 to go. So what I'm hoping to get is some informal feedback. This is an unusual form of sundial because it's accurate to the nearest minute. And you will see in some of the images how it's a wonderful teaching tool. There's one of these at University of Notre Dame, one at TCU, Deerfield Academy, Hatfield House in England, Burley House in England, Pomfret School in Connecticut. So there are a number of these, and they are used for teaching astronomy and teaching time. So many young students have no idea about time measurement. And the only thing you can be certain of when you're born is that you're going to die. And they have no sort of concept of time and how it's measured. And most people don't know that the first 209 years since Concord was founded, the life in our town was dictated by the rising and setting of the sun. And it wasn't until 1844 that Concord began to be regulated by standard time, which was railroad time. And it wasn't actually officially adopted until 1883. And actually this should be 75th meridian, not 90th. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. This is the proposed site. Brian and I drove by it some time ago and thought, wow, if that's 30 feet in diameter, that'll be perfect, because that's the size of the compass rose. And so we're looking at this site by the children's entrance. It's a wonderful location for children and visitors to be oriented. Basically, you're telling the time you're telling time and space. This gives you an orientation. The compass road here, Rose, as you will see, can direct you to special places with historical connection to Concord. If we could go to the next one, please. This is what the dial would look like with the compass rose, and we'll be seeing more of a detail of that. And the other, let's go on. It's not an absolutely ideal location, but it's by far the best one we met. This over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, can you? Down in the lower left.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that is the actual dial. So when the sun is on the winter solstice, the light will reach the top of the dial, but it won't reach the meridian line. And you will understand, unfortunately, the video showed all this. So it's a shame that you weren't able to see it. But for about 2 months of the year, between November 20th and January 21st, the sunlight won't reach the meridian line. But since we have so many clouds in winter, cloudy days, that probably won't be noticed by many people. Okay, can we have the next slide, please, Anne? Here's the a beam of light coming through the base. I designed this so that the meridian, when the sun is due south, it crosses the meridian and the beam of light shines through here. And the length of the beam of light will give you the date, the sign of the zodiac, the hours of daylight and darkness, and the seasons. So it's just with one beam of light, you're getting an incredible amount of information. Okay, let's have the next slide. Here is the pedestal on which the dial is mounted. These arches are designed after the windows of the Concord Library. I don't know if you have noticed them, I'm sure you have, but I modeled these on the basis of that. There are 8 information panels here which describe the history and how to use it, and about time and space. The next slide, please. This is the compass for rows. Now, there are about between 30 and 40 directional arrows that give the direction and distance of various places associated with Concord. The whole idea about this dial is to sort of highlight the history of Concord. And my wife and I have lived here for 38 years. We absolutely love the town. And it would be nice to put one of these in Concord. So West Concord Station, the house where Henry David Thoreau died. We've had some assistance on where these places should be from Bob Fardy, who taught in the school system a very long time, and also from Bob Gross, who many of you would have heard of. But they've been advising us, Brian and me, on what the best directional arrows might be. Can we move to the next, please? Here's the dial plate. This will be about 4 feet in diameter across from the corners of the octagon. The symbols for the planets are shown around the outside. And in the ancient form of the system, the sun was the center of the universe. The earth was the center, and the planets revolved around the earth. And that's how we came up with the 7 days of the week. I'm not going to get into all that right now. But the dial here has its projection. It's projected on Concord, Massachusetts. So you project it by taking a globe and turning it until Concord is right around here, that little dotted line. And all the continents and the lines of latitude and longitude are displayed from the center of the globe out onto this flat plane. And it's called a mnemonic projection. This was working this out, which is really what all the invention was about, was very, very complex. And also finding a suitable material to engrave it on. This material is called gabbro. It's an igneous rock. The best pieces come from the Shaanxi province in China. And it has a quality that when you polish it, it becomes like a black mirror. And when you engrave it, it goes white. But what we do with the monument artist I work with is to make it much deeper, and so it's you can really see how see very clearly even the minute minutes. It's and we've developed a technique so that we can get quite a lot of depth. This gives the exact latitude and longitude of the library, and then around the perimeter, if we go to the next slide, this was the first reference that I've been able to find to the name Concord. And And this comes from Winthrop's journal. So this is what's being suggested for the inscription around the perimeter. So let's go to the next one. I'll show you how the dial works. This is the gnomon, the shadow casting wire. Okay, and that's the shadow on the dial plate. This is the gnomon post, and that's the gnomon anchor. And the bead represents the center of the projection. In other words, the center of the world, the globe from which this projection has been made. The shadow of the bead will tell you exactly where the sun is overhead at that moment. The shadow of the gnomon will tell you where it's noon throughout the world. Everywhere along this line, it's experiencing noon. And you can tell what longitude that is by the engraving here, 45. It's actually about 43 degrees west of Greenwich. Greenwich is over here. And so this moves silently. Now the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So you can actually watch the Earth turning by looking at the gnomon. It's large enough to be able to show that. Now, of course, the declination of the shadow of the bead will change during the course of the year. So when the shadow is, when it's summer solstice, the shadow will follow this line here, marking the summer solstice. These lines represent various things. This is the equator, but you can put special occasions on. And Anne, if you wouldn't mind going back one slide to here, to the one before, you can see the special occasions engraved on the dial here, that the bead shadow will follow on those dates. So we have the founding on September 12th, 1635, First Provincial Congress, 11th of October, 1774, North Bridge, April 19th, Declaration of Independence, July the 4th, and the arrival of the railroad in Concord on June 17th. We also have the library, the founding of the library, which is this line on October 1st. So there are 6 special occasions on this particular dial. Sorry, did you? Shall we go on? So let's go on to this one. This is the dial at Deerfield Academy. I mentioned that this is an igneous rock called gabbro. The compass rose we make out of granite. This is Barry granite that comes from northern New Hampshire and Vermont. And these are different kinds of granite. This is the Deerfield dial. To bring out a sort of a classical look of a compass rose. And then, of course, here the directions of it. And in addition, we're going to have the pointers of the compass rose. So let's go to the next one. This is a detail of the Deerfield dial to give you an idea of what it looks like. The next one is University of Notre Dame, right outside the Jordan Hall of Science. The football stadium is to the left of this dial, but here the students are watching the shadow move, and which is always a sort of fun thing to do, because they get it at different times. Some of them grab it right away and can tell the time, and others discover it and they come back. So teaching about time is a very valuable thing. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here's some children. This is a Burghley house in England. Burghley was built in 1585. This is in a garden of surprises, which was built around 2008, something like that. And this was the centerpiece of the garden. So you can see there the shadow. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see the meridian line and some kids underneath the dial looking at the meridian line and waiting for the sun to cross the meridian. And then the last one is a very studious student who when I was there last, came back unexpectedly when all his friends had gone, so he could read the information panels, which was quite amusing. So that's all I have for you now. I'm sorry we couldn't see the video, because that will sort of show it in action. But I don't know if any of you have any comments or suggestions.
What's the time frame from
Money.
start to finish?
Money.
No. I
No,
understand.
I'm serious.
Assuming
No,
there's funding.
well, the first thing I'd have to do, if we can get the funds, the first thing I'd have to do is to go back. We got the estimate 6 months ago. I think we're still going to be all right. But before we move ahead, we need to finish the working drawings, show them to the people who make the different parts for me. And I think the lead time, the longest lead time is the compass rose, which is about 6 months. We're obviously really hoping to get this done by April 19th. We were hoping to get it done by October 1st for the first provincial congress. That was Brian and I were first sort of hoping to get that done by then. Yeah, we obviously long to be able to move ahead with this, but we can't until the funds are in place.
So given funding, the compass rose at 6 months is the prior to installation. That's the longest wait for a component.
That's the longest wait, but it also depends on how busy everybody is. I use very specific people who are extremely good at what they do, and they know me well enough now that they'll be kind enough to sort of look kindly on me, particularly for this kind of a project, which is like a public project. And so I think they'll be very much behind it. But
the kind of questions or things we should be looking at, any questions about the location, the design at this point? You may not have the design finalized, but this is going to be very close to what it's going to look like.
Yes, I'm very close in the design. It's in the technical, in the working drawings. Every part has to have a working drawing, obviously.
Do we have any questions at this point? Any concerns or questions or that we might want to ask, or anything we might want to offer for information or thoughts?
Well, I have a question following up, Dennis, on what you were just saying. Are there other I know that the library was what you thought was the best location for this, and I can certainly see the attraction for that. Are there other areas downtown that you considered?
Well, the trouble is trees. Brian's a tree man.
As I am.
We're working in opposite directions sort of here, but we're not, because I love trees too. We did, our first tentative location was out of the Concord Museum, in that area in front of the building. It's a sort of triangular area. And that would work extremely well, except they have plans for that. The Minutemen come and muster on that area around April 19th. So they weren't certain of all the activities they were going to have going on. So they wanted to, they decided, you know, that it wouldn't be right there because they had other plans for it. And the Concord Library just seems perfect, particularly it's more central located. Schools go there. We're hoping, you know, that teachers will bring their classes by and be able to think about time. What is time? Why do we have 24 hours in the day? You know, why do we have 7 days in the week, 30 days in the month? All these things which we live with every day, and you ask most people, they don't know. And there was a survey done at Harvard when I was there about 25 years ago. A friend of mine who taught astronomy did a survey of graduating seniors and saying, why do we have seasons? And the majority of graduating students couldn't answer that question. And so there are enormous gaps in this education. And I think it'll be a lovely thing. I mean, a dial is a nice place to gather and gather around and meet. It can be a meeting point. It could be a teaching point. And in making these dials over the last 20 plus years, I've become very aware that every individual interprets it in an individual way. There was a girl out at the University of Notre Dame, and I was taking some photographs one morning, and it was about 7 in the morning, and I said, you know, do you like the town? She says, I come here every day. And I said, why? I mean, can I ask you why? Are you telling the time? And she said, no, the arrow here points to Delhi. That's where my family is. So she almost thought of it as somewhere that was very special for her. It was her own particular attraction to it. So there can be many different ways. And I'm hoping if we can do this, that the same will happen with students and visitors. And I think it'd be an excellent place for tour guides to start their visit, because you've got all the pointers of the compass rose directing to places associated with.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second and say what Dennis would say, which if he weren't more polite than I, which is he doesn't want to interrupt you, but the question was about locations.
Okay.
And I'm recently, without naming that which must not be named, but there is a place in Concord that is in search of a purpose and a focus, is there not?
I don't know. Do you know? Can you tell me?
Well, I'm not supposed to spill this kind of thing. No, there was the populace in general will have seen that there was a story in the newspaper of record about a proposal for a public space, but without a well-defined.
Are you talking about the center of town?
Oh, maybe I am. Yeah.
Yeah, Vanderhoff's. Yes. Okay. Well,
it just occurred to me that this is a magnificent thing for Concord, and if Concord is looking for a magnificent thing to focus on somewhere, that might be.
Let me address your question, because I think that's a really good question. And one of the problems we have in every location, Brian and I have driven around all parts of Concord looking at different sites. And the problem is that is trees.
Sure.
Shadow will prevent sunlight coming, and we don't want to remove any trees. We want to increase the number of trees. But the Concord Library seemed to answer all the questions.
Sure. I could offer you space in my backyard.
Yeah. He has a big. I've seen his backyard. It's big. I don't want to cut this discussion short. It's growing late, and I think the question is, do we think the library? Do we think this sundial is something we'd like to see in town, in this area, particularly next to the library? Is it appropriate there? From my point of view, I think it's a nice addition. There's nothing sort of historic about that landscape that's there at this point. It's part of the new building. Those are my additions to this. Anybody else have any other thoughts? I don't think it comes to mind that's a negative at this point. Let's put it that way.
No, I don't think of anything as a negative. I think it would be a very interesting, intriguing addition for Concord. I think though, as the HTC, right, we'll have to look at it as, like a permanent monument, and how we would adjudicate that is, but I think it's wonderful. And I think actually near the library is also wonderful because it's a teaching tool, and it's, that's where people gather usually to learn.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, thank you very much. If no one else has anything to add, I wish you luck and look forward to seeing you again.
Well, I look forward to seeing you too. Thank you all very much for everything you do.
Yeah, very exciting. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, we're down to more other business. There are minutes to be approved. Has anybody read the minutes? Everybody read the minutes? Anybody want to for a motion to approve these minutes?
I don't have a copy in front of me, but I do have a question, of course, because I always have questions about minutes. I believe it is the September 7th one.
Right, September 7th, right.
With
No,
the
September 7th, no.
yeah, where the Lang Street project is there's some, and I don't have my note even in front of me here, characterization of that project. Was that taken, Anne, would you know, was that taken from the video or is that prose? It seemed it was talking about I believe the renovation of the garage space or something like that rather than I don't have it in front of me, so this is a worthless comment from me.
I can say that we do hire out. We haven't had an administrative assistant for a very long time, so the
Sure,
town
I understand.
has been hiring out for services to draft the minutes, and then I do, you know, just sort of clean them up. So when you asked whether it's, you know, taken directly from the video, it was taken from the video, but not my
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
I sorry, my apology. I should have been better prepared here. My notes are cross house and it's hardly a hill to die on.
So if you don't have a hill to die on, do you want to make a motion to approve these minutes?
If it'll help the cause, sure. I move that we approve the minutes for September 7th and
Okay.
is it October 4th as
Good. Do I have a second for to that? Melinda, second? Okay. Tim? Do you approve of the minute? I guess we can do, you know what, we can just say aye. Everybody say aye on the minutes if they approve these minutes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move the minutes along. I had some other bits and pieces just to add to your evening and just to lengthen this meeting. But there's a lot going on, a tremendous amount going on. No one told me this when I took this job. But some good news, and I think maybe all of you heard the scenic roads bylaw. Final draft was approved last night by the planning board. So another piece of our protecting the historic Concord has taken place. So that's wonderful. And that was a hard fought battle. And I'm glad to say that that's moving along. I sent an email about content. I don't know if anybody had any questions about that, but basically it is content has no bearing on our decisions. We deal with infrastructure. We don't deal with content. And Anne had that approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. They added their comment that yes, that's true, that that content has nothing to do with our decisions. There's only one tiny little caveat if you've read our guidelines, and that is the signage in town. We do make one comment, and that is signage in town should only carry the name of the business, no other comments or advertising on it. But other than that, that's not part of our guidelines at all. At our last meeting, and I sent out an email on this, we agreed that we would provide 2 members of the commission to meet with 2 members of the DEI commission to talk about their concerns and to begin a dialogue in meeting the things that they think we should consider moving forward. No one jumped in. I will take one position. I don't know if there's anyone else here who would be willing to work with me on meeting with the DEI and hearing what they have to say about changes they'd like to make to our guidelines and our operating. Is there anybody here that has an interest in that at all? We met with them today, and I thought it was a very good meeting, by the way. I felt much better about what they're doing and trying to do. And there's a series of those meetings coming up. If not, I'll start strong arming someone, and hopefully I'll find one of you to work with me on this. Maybe I'll get Luis to work on this. The other things that are going to come in our way, expansion of the historic district on Sudbury Road. We've heard from citizens who want to protect structures there. I think the Wheeler House is there. And with the MBTA mandate about housing near stations, I think we've got to really take a hard look at that. And I don't know exactly how we're going to approach that. But that's going to come down the pike, I think, in the next year or so. I've already committed with Ann to doing more to promote the Historic District Commission and its value to the community. And that's something we really need to do as we approach the 250th and our own anniversary of founding. So I think there's a need to really bolster in the community the value of the HDC. I don't know how many of you have been involved with the 250th Permanent Monument. That's also coming our way this year. Did not attend the last meeting. I did not know about it. I've not been that involved with this project, but there was a hearing on the monument. Do you all know where this is going in town, or where they proposed it going?
I haven't been to a meeting in a while now.
Well, it's going near the parish house for the Catholic Church, in that little piece of green that's between the parish house and the Bell Plaza, where the Concord Bell is from the Concord ship. It's going in that one piece of green space. So that's a piece of Concord green space that's being used for this monument. And so it's something that's going to be a very careful decision about what goes there. I want to encourage them. I'll reach out to them to come to us earlier than later in what they're thinking about, which is always good. But they are proposing some kind of monument in that space. So we'll be dealing with that. We'll also be dealing with some temporary installations. One was just posted. It was sent to me by someone. I forget who sent it to me, but anyway, this is a temporary installation that will go in the common right in the middle of the square in Concord. In autumn of 2004, it'll be something contemporary. So we will be seeing that as part of the 250th that we'll be looking at. There, on Friday, I gather, and the members are all welcome to a preservation planning meeting as we move along with this town preservation plan that Ann has been working on. And that's Friday, this Friday at 11 o'clock, and that's a Zoom, correct, Ann?
Yes, that's right.
The Zoom, okay. So let Ann know if you're interested in that. You're welcome to join in. On the 26th at 7 o'clock, the select board will hold a public hearing on the warrant issues that of concern to them, and our DEI warrant article that they're putting forward about a commission, a task force to look at how we operate, will be presented, and the proponents have got to provide with a written rundown of what they're aiming for, and that's going to be posted. And I'm not sure, Ann, what the timing is, but it's going to be posted soon on the town website, so you can actually see what they're in writing, what they're looking at. And on the 7th, excuse me, on the 26th at 7 o'clock, they'll be making their presentation, and the select board will be listening to what they have to say. I believe that the select board can make a decision to support or not support warrant issues. So it's important that we be there and share any concerns. I will be there. And I think our basic feeling is that we really support where DEI is going from our last meeting. We think it's wonderful. We understand where they are going. We just feel, I think, basically that because we don't deal with content anymore, that we're probably not a good subject for their initial look at a committee or a commission in Concord for making some adjustments to how they operate. And we also feel strongly that since the town is paying for $50,000 for its preservation plan, that ought to go forward. Working with the DEI, and that was part of the meeting today to bring them into this plan. And that once that is done, if they don't feel satisfied, then they can take other measures. But for now, we think it's premature. And that'll be the stance that I'll be taking at that meeting. And then on the 29th of April, no, town meeting is 29th of April. Do I have that correct?
I think that's right.
Yeah, pardon?
Yeah.
Yes, that the town meeting. So if the warrant gets there, I hope everybody will put that on their calendar. And if the warrant issue goes forward, we need to be there to share our thoughts about this particular issue. So anyway, Ann, if I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, so that's what's on our agenda going forward. How exciting. It would help if we had some more new members. And so I encourage you to help us find some. We've looked at a couple of people. We've been not rejected, but they've decided to do other things rather than serve on the Historic Districts Commission. So we really need people to get involved.
I think I might
Walter,
have,
Kate?
I think I might have a live one.
Yeah,
So
Kate's been sharing some live ones, so hopefully we're moving in the right direction. Walter, do you have something to add?
Yeah, we had continuation of officer elections to deal with in this meeting as well, didn't we?
Yes, but as you remember, the
leading candidate was not physically present.
exactly, and then it's not there tonight, so we're going to
So-
put that off to the next
Okay,
time.
but very good. I just making note.
Yes, you're right to noting that. Yes, we
Okay.
put that off. Anything else that you want to come before the meeting, because it's getting late and we want to move on? If there's nothing else, Anne, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, nothing else to add.
Okay, well, I think it's enough for one evening. And be sure to contact me if you have any questions about any of this or Anne. So I need a
Well
vote to
done,
adjourn.
and well done, Dennis.
Thank you. So we need a vote to adjourn.
Aye.
Okay, so Walter, thank you very much. Do we have a second on adjourning? Do we need to second this?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Oh, good. Okay, all in favor of adjourning? Great,
Aye.
thank you very much. We'll see you at the next meeting, if not before.